Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session of the Tableau Newbie user group. We're really pleased to have you here, Maddie. Let's go to the next slide. And we say that sincerely. It's not just that you're here with us in the Newbie group, and we're really pleased that you are part of the Newbie group, but you're part of the community, and that means a whole lot to Tableau and a whole lot to Salesforce. And thank you for taking part in that. If you're not a member of any other user group, check it out. You may have a user group locally. Some people in your local neighborhood who are part of a news user group where you can go, and you can go to in-person meetings also. Now, we're seeing a lot of people come out and tell us in the chat where they're from. Would you also tell us if you're going to go to TC, if you're going to go to the Tableau conference this year? It starts April 15th, and we'd love to see you out there. Klaus is going to be there. I'm going to be there. Carlin, I see you're from Lisle, Illinois. I used to live in Lisle, Illinois. Come to the conference. We'd love to meet you out there. Just stop by and say hello. Michael Hesser is going, and Michael, we're going to get to meet for the first time because I've known Michael for quite some time. So, Maddie, let's go to the next slide. Okay, just a little housekeeping here to get us started. You've already figured out that you can see us, but we can't see you, and you can also, we've disabled your mic. So there's going to be a couple 300 people here on the call today, and the bandwidth just doesn't work with that many people live. So we do encourage you to use the chat, and we also encourage you to use the Q&A. Now, it's real important that if you have a question for one of the speakers, please put it in the Q&A. The chat will get going pretty fast, and it's kind of hard to keep up with the chat during the presentation itself. So we'll put that in the Q&A. Now, the question that's going to be asked about 14 times in the next 30 minutes is this session recorded? And the answer is yes, the session is recorded. We have already started recording the session, and it will be available in a couple of days out on our out on the Newbie Group website. Okay, Manny. Okay, I know some of you haven't been to the Newbie Group before, and this might be your first time here, and we understand that. This group, Klaus, wave to everybody. Klaus and I started this group. What is it, Klaus? We're now in our fourth year, right?
Fourth year, season 4, episode number 2, I think.
Season 4, episode number 2. Absolutely right. Klaus and I started this about 4 years ago, and the group at that point, it's dedicated to you, to people who are relatively new to Tableau. Maybe you're in that first year of Tableau, and you want to elevate your skills. You want to elevate your experience with Tableau, and we want you to experience that. We meet every 6 to 8 weeks. Now, I also want to share with you, we don't expect you to stay with us forever. We expect at some point in time, you're going to say, hey, there's other groups out there that I'd like to get involved with also. The analytics group, Annabelle's group, the analytics group is a very good group to get involved with. Or the Tableau public group is a very good group to get involved with. So please check some of those out also. Now, each session, or in most sessions, we have 2 types of presentations. The first type is what we call a how does that work presentation, where we take a deep dive down into one of the Tableau functions and explain how it works. And that's done by somebody, one of the Newbie group members. It's Klaus and I and Maddie and Reyes and Swathi, and also Viraj. Sometimes we'll make that presentation. And we also typically have a guest speaker. But today we're having a special type of meeting where we're not going to have a guest speaker, and we'll explain that in just a second. Maddie? Time to meet the team. Klaus, you want to explain who you are and where you're from?
Yes, of course. Welcome, everyone. My name is Klaus. I'm from Germany and a proud Tableau user since version 10.2. So I started in 2017. I work at Münster University of Applied Sciences in Münster, and I'm also part of the Apps for Tableau team in the Netherlands, where we create premium Tableau extensions. So if you're ever in need of something to extend the functionalities of Tableau, reach out to me and I'm happy to help.
And they are really good. Okay. Swati?
Hi everyone, I'm Swati from London. I've been using Tableau since past 5 or 6 years. To be honest, I just joined a Newbie Tug as a co-lead, like episode 1 of season 4. Yes, this is my second time being the co-lead. Yeah.
If she joined the season, she joined the team for season 4. She's been through training camp and she's ready to go now, and you're going to hear her speak later. Maddie?
Hi, everyone. I am Maddie Wild. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I work at the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation, which is a private grant-making foundation in Indiana, and I work with our grantee data internally, some web metrics internally, and then I work with a lot of public data, so that's what I'll be talking about today.
Yeah. Reyes?
Hey everyone, I'm Reyes Murrieta. I've been using Tableau going on 5 years now, and I work for Zoetis Incorporated, which is an animal pharmaceutical company based out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I've been using Tableau for data science, organizational strategy purposes for many years. And every time I come to these sessions, I always learn something new. So again, as Viraj, if he was here, he'd say, I'm a newbie at heart.
Okay, and my name's Jim Daner. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been using Tableau now for a little over 8 years. Now, we should mention a couple things. First of all, Klaus is in the Hall of Fame. He's a visionary Hall of Fame, and he's a bit modest about it, but he's one of the Tableau All-Stars. I happen to be one of the visionaries also, and I'm also one of the Tableau ambassadors. Okay, and Viraj is not with us today. Viraj is not going to be with us today. Viraj is one of the Tableau ambassadors also.
Yeah, and Jim always forgets to mention that he's leading the scoreboard in the Tableau forums. So Jim is widely known as the forums legend. Thanks for all the work you do over there.
Okay, well, thank you for mentioning that. Maddie, are we ready to go? Let's take a look ahead and see what's coming up. Our next meeting is going to be on May the 6th. So you can mark that on your calendar right now, and we're going to give you a chance to sign up for that meeting in just a second here. And in that meeting, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what happens on that data source page. That's a page where you bring in different data sets, you connect them together, and there's an awful lot of work that can be done on that data source page. And we're going to spend, I think Klaus and I are going to do that presentation on how does that work, and we're going to take you into some detail on how it works. We also have a guest speaker, and if we go to the next slide, I'll tell you who that guest speaker is going to be. A brand new Tableau visionary, Jennifer Doss, is going to speak at our next meeting. Jennifer is very good with using shape and color to tell a story. And she's going to be our speaker at the next meeting. We're really pleased to have her. She just made Visionary this year. She's thrilled about it. So I would encourage you to join that meeting and see Jennifer speak. Okay. Now today we're doing something a little bit different. We're only going to have one type of session today. And if you recall from the announcement that came out, we're going to take a data set. And as a team, we're going to break it down, take a look at it. Maddie's going to take a look at and tell us how she sourced the data to begin with, and then how to clean the data and how to get it ready to use in Tableau. And then Klaus is going to go into details about what did this data tell him? What insights? What can you get out of it? I'm going to do a little work to talk about how we can do some custom calculations and take a look at different measures in that data. And then Swati is going to show us how to format the data to make it look really good. I think we're ready to go and get started. You ready to go, Maddie?
Yep.
Okay, it's all yours.
Switch over. Okay, so we are going to build a dashboard from literally scratch, from the very start. And so the first thing that we have to do is we have to gather our data. And so if you work at a business, you're often already handed a data set. But today we're going to look at a different type of use case in which you have to go get public data. And the data source that we're using today is the Census Bureau's, it's called the American Community Survey. The American Community Survey is given every single year. It's into the decennial census that the census conducts, and this is just a random survey, and then they model the data based off that to be representative of the American public. And this is if you've ever used the ACS data before, they have a large dashboard portal where you can get a lot of different metrics on different tables, but this is something called their public use microdata sample. We call it PUMS. And what PUMS is it's just like a more customizable version of some of the ACS data. We're also going to use something called a PUMA district. And so I'm here on the census overpage. There's a lot of different choices for the data set. So we're going to use ACS 1 year samples. There's also 5 years, and based on whatever you want to do, that may be more appropriate for you. We are going to look at this data across 2018 to 2023. So these are the 5 most recent years. So I'm just going to pull 2023 first. And then this is what the interface looks like. So there's a lot of options, and you can see there are different types of items. And there's also an area for you to select geography. So for this example, we want to look within the context of New York City and across all 5 boroughs. And we want to look and see specifically if there's information out there about household income, population, government assistance. And we really want to anchor this around the years during or right before, during, and after the pandemic to see how any of these items changed over time. A use case for this that we maybe would imagine would be maybe you're on a city council team, or you work for some small government agency or policy nonprofit, and you need to see really specific information that maybe isn't captured in the larger ACS data set, or you need to see it for a really small region. So these geographies that we're going to select are called PUMAs, and you can see that there are other geographies. So these are not the only ones in this data set, but this is the ones that we want to highlight today. And PUMAs are these micro data areas, and they cover 100 to 200,000 people, usually closer to 100,000. So in the same way that like your zip codes and all those things cover a certain amount of people, these cover 100 to 200,000 people, which allows us to compare across PUMAs, and also means that when we're doing things like averages or weighted average or things like that, we don't have to weight them because they are relatively the same size areas. All right, so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to choose my PUMAs. I'm in New York, but this is all of the PUMAs across all of New York State, and we specifically want the New York City ones. So there are many of them, and a real low point of this interface is that you cannot hit the shift key and select them. So that's some feedback. If anyone has a hookup at the ACS, please have them work on that. Okay, I'm not even going to select them all because it doesn't matter. I think there are 49 that you have to select. So I've selected some. If you're doing this at home, you should select all of your NYC PUMAs. They all start with NYC. And they also have the borough name on them if you noted that. So we have several measures that we're going to pull today, but I'm just going to show you how to pull one. And this is 2023. I would have selected all my PUMAs, and I just want to see household income. I could scroll down, but it's much easier. There's a lot of measures and values, so it's just easier to do this. The one I want is this household income in the past 12 months. So I'm going to do that. And then I have to go to my cart. So this is where it gets kind of weird to look at. I want to make sure that I have everything here. You're going to see this value here come up again, NA vacant. This is what happens when they call someone and that person doesn't pick up, because this is survey data. So these are individuals who have answered this, and then they model that and roll it up to be representative of everyone. All right, so this is what it looks like. I've only selected one value for this, and you'll see why as we get through our prep flow. So I've got all my geographies here. I've got all my counts, and this count is, no, that's not right. That's not what I want. I want PUM's person weight. So you may have to select some of these things on the side. There we go. And then I want the average, because I'm looking for household income value. So this should be a dollar amount. It is a slow data set. There's a lot of values. Well, while we're sitting here, we can talk about public data. So as we mentioned, this is like a use case of harvesting your own data from a public source. And something that is really great when you work in a business setting is that you have the person who can alter the structure of your data, who you can go to smooth something out, to clean something, to get something into a different format. Even you may be that person as the analyst if you work on a really small team, but more likely you've got a team who are, data scientists, or you have a consultant, someone who's working in your CRM or, on those integration teams, and they can do that work for you. When we look at public data, that is not the case. The data is available to us in the format that it is given, and we can't do a lot to change that. So you can see I'm manipulating some things on here, but I'm really changing the value of the data. I'm not changing the structure so much. So when this data comes out, and I may just switch it to count just so you can see it, so we can move on. Oh, it's just gonna still work on it. Okay, well, you know what? That's fine. So from here, we would download it, and then I would have to repeat this process every time for all my values. So I did have to do this, and it ends up with a ton of files. I want to say upwards of 95 for what we were doing, but we can go check for real. But you'd want to pull this exact data for every single year and pull a new table, hit download and share here. And then I want the PUMS person weight, not the housing unit weight. And then choose CSV, you'd export your data table. I don't know why it's loading so slowly, but it is. So then, because this is not something that we can manipulate ourselves, we have to do a lot of work in Tableau Prep to get this to some place that is usable. So now I'm going to talk about the data import. When I exported all of these files, I used a specific naming convention so that I had the year at the beginning of each file. If you noticed on the table when it was loading, there is no year from your selection. So what happens in these files when you download them is they have these huge note sections at the top, and they essentially catalog all the choices that you've made. What's unfortunate about that is that the note section are not consistent for every single file. So if I'm choosing a housing file, it may have 10 rows of notes, and if I'm choosing a population file, it may have 5. So what would be easy, what would be the nice thing to do would be to have that year already in there, or to be able to put this data, this raw file that I have not touched yet, into Tableau Prep, or maybe use an R script or something like that. And I'd use an index function or source row ID, and I would clean those notes out. However, this is just a one-off pull for me, so it wasn't really worth building that. So I did this a little bit differently. I hard-coded this. I put every file has the year, and then it tells me what the file is. And that's how I organized it. Because this is public data, there are a lot of ways to do it, and all those ways may be right ways, and some of those ways may be wrong ways, or you may have different ways. But you have to think about your end goal in mind. And I knew what I needed was I needed the year, and I needed to know what the metric was for each file. So I used that naming convention when I pulled the file. So I'm importing all my data here. This is all the files for 2018. So they're all saved in one folder, which means I can do a wildcard match. I wildcard matched anything that has 2018 here, and it pulled all my files. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 7, and I just want to make sure that for every year I have all 7 files. I know that I do because I built this. So there we go, there's 2019, and I have all my files there. So this is 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022, 2023. They're all wildcard matches, and they'll all pull the 7 files that have the beginning years of those things. Something I like to do that I would recommend is when you do an import that you add a clean step. It doesn't have to have any data changes, so you'll note that mine has no data changes, but it's just a place for you to review your data and to make sure that the structure and form looks how you expect it, which it does, I know, because I manually had to go take all those notes out of every single file. Okay, so from here, I would like to union my data, and the reason I'm doing this at this point is because I have some things that I want to do to every single file and every single row of every single file. So some of those things are removing more unnecessary headers, renaming fields, adding layers, things like that. When you look at my flow, another thing you'll note is that it is color-coded, and you can see I do a lot of naming. I find that to be very helpful. If you work on a team and you're going to use a file over and over again, I personally will come and touch files about once a year. So I need to have good notes for myself. So when I come back in 1 year, I know what I did and I can recreate that and perform all the necessary checks. If you work on a team, same thing, but you need to have that documentation in there so that other people on your team know what you did, know why you did it, and also know how to check it. So all of my steps where everything is together is gray, and I can look at the things that I did in each field. So the first step, the first clean step, I just merged some duplicates and I removed some unnecessary fields. So I'm going to skip that one because it's not actually that helpful for us. But the second step is the geography cleanup. So I want to make sure that all the PUMS area match across all of my data poles. And I know that they don't. So you'll notice that sometimes some of the PUMS areas are put together, are aggregated. Like New York, Bronx, District 3 and 6 are aggregated in some of my polls. Well, to make this work, to make any visualizations work, I'm going to need to combine Bronx, Community District 3 and 6 across all my data sets. So I do have an area in here. I grouped some of my values in the PUM area, and I did that because I noticed that some of my PUMS districts were combined in my data set, and it's not possible for me to separate them, which means I have to combine them for everything. The other thing I did is I used a split to give me the borough. So I just took a split. You'll see it right here. It's my first one. It says calculated field PUM area split 1. I did a split function. Right here, you can split your values. I did a custom split. And then I used the separator, I used the dash. That's what that thing's called. And I separated my fields out. And then I separated it again with a space so that I could just get Bronx. I could get all these rows on their own without having to go in and do it manually. Can you do this manually? Yes. You could have duplicated your PUM area, and then you could have chopped all of these off. You could have grouped them. That would be a lot more steps. Also, that'd be reliant on the data source never changing, or these community district groups not changing their groupings. So I didn't do that. I tried to do something that was a little bit more automated. So that is how I got the boroughs. The boroughs is not something that is part of my data, but it's something that I wanted because I knew that I could get a shapefile of the New York City boroughs. So if I wanted to visualize this on a map, that was an easy way to do it. It's much easier than the PUMS area. And then the next thing that I know that I need is everybody needs a year field. This year field comes from the naming convention. So if you look, it's a calculated field from the file path. So I just did here I can edit it so you guys can see it. This is such a simple calculation. This is not rocket science. We can't emphasize that enough. So because I used a naming convention across all the files, I just did the left function because it's the left for, this is a string, and then I had to change it later to a year. So this will pop out a string. So it was the left 4 values in my string of the file path field. So, okay. And then I did want to change that to a year. And so then I just changed this to a date type up here. So if I go back up to my calculated field, you can see, there we go. So when this pops out the first time, it's a string. It says ABC string right here. And then I just want to change that to a date. You change your data type up here by clicking the little thing. So it's already a date, so I'm not going to change it again. Okay, from there, I have a problem with the structure of my data. So if we look at this, something that's really helpful is to look at your list view to see all your fields all at once. So when I look at this, I can see that some of my fields are measures that I want, such as average. This is that household income that I just pulled. Some of my fields are the measures I want, and some of them are actually what will become values. So all of these race fields, I do not want them to be measures. I would like them to be values. So because I have a mix of the two, I can't just do a straight pivot. I have to separate my data. So from here, I am going to filter to just my race fields. And let's go back to my table view. Okay, so I used the file paths to do this. There are a lot of different ways you can do this, but this was just the most straightforward. So I used my file paths to only keep the polls that were specifically about race. So I'll go show you that. So these all end in race, which again was my naming conventions. And so it was easy for me to just filter, that's up here, filter to selected values. And then, okay, it doesn't want to load, but that's fine. And I just manually selected race. There's also a way that you can just do like a little star race. So either way will work. But that narrows it down to just the race ones. And so now I'm in a place where I've got all of these values or all of my measures that are here. I need to pivot them. And so what I did was I did a race pivot. And you do this race pivot by just hitting add. And there's a pivot option. So it's pretty easy. There we go. Pop back up. So from here, I selected the values that I wanted to pivot. And it's columns to rows. You can do a reverse pivot too, so you can do it the other way if that's what your data calls for. But mine, I needed them to be columns to rows, so I selected the ones that I wanted to go into rows, and then everything else just followed. And then from there, I have something that will happen a lot over this data set, that I have values that need to be separated. So I have now my race group. That's the pivot I just did. But I also have, I had two different groups here when I started. So I want just the population by race in one, and I just want the income, the average household income in another. What I want this data to end up looking like is a table that has many columns for each measure. In the current structure, it was not like that. So that's why I split it up. I wanted to clean up those measures, and then I'm gonna join it. Because if I unioned it, that would append each row to the end. And you can union it, it will work, but that's not how I want my data to be structured. So because I want my data to be wide, and I want for the year 2018, Bronx Community District 11, I want to see the population right next to the income for each race group. That means I have to join it. And then the last thing I do is a merge step. It's a clean step. You can see now I'm removing some duplicated fields because that can happen. Oh, I do want to go over this join though with you. So when I joined this, this is going to be true for all of my joins that I use in here. I want to make sure that any time that I have a repeated field that should match, I'm joining it with this join clause. I know that there may be some of these districts that maybe I have data for, Bronx Community District 9, for Alaska Natives. Maybe I have a population data piece for them, but maybe I don't have the household income for them. So I used a full join, full outer join, because I didn't want to lose any data at all. If you only wanted data that you had both population and income, that would be an inner join. And so I would lose some pieces. So you can see that there are 165 rows where I have population data for a specific year, place, and race group where I don't have the income data. And then this same, but the opposite on the other side. So that's my join. All right, so that was race. I had to do this because I needed a pivot. Then I came down here to all of the other data. That's not race data. And I have, let's see, what all do I have in here? I've got household income. I've got percent I can't remember what this one is. I have to look at. I've got employment status record, and that's all of these guys. And then I also have count is going to be that population. So from here, none of these are race groups. So they are going to have a different number of rows. So I cannot join these fields, or I cannot, I can't join these files in the end because they're going to have a different amount of records for each location. They'll have one single record for each year and each place, whereas all of my race data is going to have several records for each place. And I can show that to you, what I mean, because sometimes it's hard to understand. Okay. So when I'm looking for Bronx Community District 1 and 2, I see that I have all of these. Okay, and I want to do it for the year 2018. I have all of these rows for Bronx Community District 1 and 2 for 2018. So I could not join this data because it's only going to give me 1 year. It's going to give me 1 row for each year. Ooh, this is a bad example because that's employment. So that's why we are not joining these in the end. There we go. So I only have 1 row for each year. Okay. So from here, we'll do unemployment first or employment status, because it is very similar to what I had to do for race. Like race, I'm going to have multiple rows based on the employment status. Currently, the employment status is in columns, not rows. So I'm going to do another pivot. And then this pivot is similar to the last one, except I don't have to clean it up as much, which is great. And so then my end product is I've got a number of individuals employed under each of these circumstances for each area in each borough and each year. So if I pick a district, you'll see that for the Bronx in 2018, Bronx Community District 10, here's my number of individuals employed at each one of those categories. Okay, so the very last thing, I know this is a lot. Cleaning the data is really the boring part, but don't worry guys, we're almost done, and then we'll get to play with it and make it beautiful. Okay, so my employment data not my employment data, my non-employment data, I'm filtering out the employment data. I've got population, average household income, public assistance dollars, and then, okay. And then I have to tell you about a problem that I had. Okay, so I filtered out to all these things, and something I noticed that I didn't notice, Klaus noticed this. We got all the way to the end, and Klaus was like, why are there multiple population rows for each place? And that's because I had my population and my population who received public assistance were both named from my data source the same thing. And so they were showing up as duplicates across each row with different numbers. So that was something that I had to figure out. And I was like, why was that happening? But this is another reason why we have to break the data apart, because I need to separate those two things. I need to give them different identities. They come from different sources, and I need to separate them out. And I don't want my data in rows like that for that reason. I would rather have it in columns. That's not always going to be true, but that is true for this data set. And so that's why you see so many of my measures being broken apart and then rejoined together, in addition to the fact that some of them just need cleaned in different ways. Okay, so, all right, that's a lot of merges and joins. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything important. Okay, so I broke these all apart, I rejoined them, and then I have a final output here where I have for every single district and every single year, I have one row in which I have the population of that district. I have the population on public assistance. Oh, I lost it. Okay. And then I have the average public assistance dollar per household for that district. Okay, so my final outputs for all of that data that I pulled are these 3 files. I've got a race output, I've got a labor, so I've got population and household income by race. I've got employment status and employment population, and then I've got an overall population file for all 5 years for every single district. Okay, that was a lot.
Maddie, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Is this typical of data that you down from public sources?
Yes, I wish I could show you guys the ACS data flow that I use for work, because it is wider and taller than this. Public data is hard. It's just never, it's absolutely not ever in the format you want. And the best part of public data is they frequently change the structure. So something I didn't add in here is I didn't add any places where I would check for something, but in my professional work, I would add in somewhere, you know, like here, I would add in a little guy, I'd add in a clean step, and oh no, I don't want that. Why does this keep, okay, whatever, this doesn't matter. I would add in a clean step and I would filter it to, you know, a couple little values that I want to check just to make sure that everything's looking exactly how I want it to, down to like a really minute amount, because these are really complex prep flows for data that's not in the most usable format.
Okay, so this gets us actually 3 data sets.
Yes.
And now we got to do something with it.
Yep. So I'm going to stop sharing so that someone can make it beautiful and fun. I did try to color code it to make it, you know, 1% fun, but.
Maybe one thing to add, Maddie, since I see people being a little bit overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things that had to be done, there is a challenge, the Prep and Data challenge going on. So if you want to start with Tableau Prep, Prep and Data is a real good place to start, to learn the tool, to learn about the different features, and to slowly get into the topic of data prep with Tableau Prep. I think I can really recommend to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm sharing my screen as well. I take over the part to get some insights from the data. Maybe before I start, we have to make some choices what we are going to work on. And we as a group, we decided to go for a exploratory dashboard. That means, and this resonates quite well with me because I'm not from New York. I don't know so much about New York. And I really want to understand what's in that data set. And I want to try to find patterns and interesting insights in this data. So the purpose for what we are going to create is more about analyzing and understanding and less about communicating a specific story. So maybe we have some hypotheses about what might have happened during COVID, before and after, but we don't want to do that today. So more an exploratory dashboard, so something that you can maybe transfer also quite well to your workplace and to the things, to the data that you have to work with. Okay, so I like to start in Tableau with a blank workbook. So I haven't connected to any data yet, but I'm super glad that Maddie did all the work. So I got her prep files, and Maddie mentioned also the shape files. So we are going to draw also maps for the boroughs and for the PUM areas, and all of this is already available for me. So the first thing to do any analysis I have to do is to connect to data. Topic of the next session will be the data source page. So we will do a little bit on that today, maybe as a preview for next session. So next session, this will be, we will go deeper into the different topics, but we're also looking to this today a little bit. Okay, so I know that Maddie created hyperfiles, and to connect to a hyperfile, I open here the connection pane, and to connect to a hyperfile, I have to select more, which is a little bit funny that for the Tableau specific file, the hyperfile, there is no dedicated connection here. But anyway, so let's take more. And I'm already in that folder where Maddie put all the data. And what I am going to connect first to is the overall data prep file 1. And when I open that, I will be prompted to the data source page. And I already see that this table sitting in that hyperfile has been put here on the canvas. I can preview the data here, and this is pretty much what Maddie created. So we have the PUM areas here, the boroughs, the year, the population on public assistance, the household income, and the public assistance dollars. Yeah, then next thing is I want to create my data model. So I am building out my data source, and maybe I should even give that a proper name. So New York City analysis data source. Oh, sorry for the typing. Yeah, and then the next thing I want to add here is the shapefiles. So in one data source, we can have several connections. And the next thing I will do is to create a connection to a spatial file, because shapefiles are spatial files. And when going back to this folder, Maddie gave me the New York borough shapefile. And you see when you open a shapefile, there are different file types, and the only one that is selectable is the SHP file. I'm going to open that one. You will see the file here. We can preview the data. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, this is quite small, quite a small data set. So we have the borough names, and we have the geometries that we can later use to create the maps. Fine. I will create a join with this. So I will enter the physical layer of this first table. And within this one, I will create a join. So I will pick borough on the left side and borough name on the right side. And you will see that this will add rows to my table. Yeah, so the blue one is coming from that blue connection, the overall data prep file, and the orange columns are coming from this file. Yeah, and you see that I now have my geometries that I can later use. Maybe I can clean it up already a little bit, so I don't need the borough name twice, and I think I also don't need the borough code, so let me hide that as well. Next thing I'm going to add is the Puma geo information. So there is, like there was for the boroughs, also a Puma shapefile. Let me add that as well. So I'm adding a third connection to my data source. I think this is quite a big one. I hope this works. Yeah, and it directly puts it here on the join. So here is the Puma file. Let me quickly see which column holds the name of the district. That should be the name column. Yeah, that's fine. And I know that I have a Puma area in my extract. That is this one. And I have the name over here. Yeah, and that's it. So when I update now, you see that we also have these green columns added to the data source. I cannot preview the data. I hope I did nothing wrong, but I hope this should work. Yeah, let's quickly check if everything is fine. So I have my 3 tables here: the extract with the borough, the PUM area, the year, and with my 4 measures, average household income, public assistance dollars, population, and so on. Then I have the Puma file here and the borough file over there. So let's see if that works. Let's create a map of the boroughs. Not working. I think I did something wrong. Let's go back to the data source page. What happened here? I don't know. I think I might have to get rid of the Pumas again. So here it works. So what's the thing? It's Palm area 1. That is fine. And it should be name. Let's try one more time. Palm area 1 and name. Well, this is not working. I don't know why. Let's try. You see, this is live. Let's try a relationship. Maybe this is more graceful. Do it here. So it's the Palm area and the name. Yeah, maybe this is better. Let's see if we can also create a map from the Palm areas. That should be this one. I think this will create one for the entire US. So yeah, I think we can use this. Should be fine. Okay, so yeah, this is my data prep work. Yeah, bring everything together. I could also add the other 2 hyperfiles that Maddie has created and add them as well. Let's do that. So we have the prep file 2. Remember, Maddie mentioned that they have different levels of granularity, and therefore, again, relationships is the best way, I think, to connect the 2. Also, let's give them some better names. So this is about race, and we can connect the 2 on the year and also on the Palm area. So there's also a Palm area. Yeah, this should do it already. And the last hyperfile I'm going to add is the employment one. So this is this one. Yeah, also renaming employment. And again, connect the 2 on year and on Palm area. Okay, good. Yeah, so this way I have built my data model here. So I have my New York City analysis data source consisting of the different tables coming from the different connections. And maybe I can filter this, or I will do that later. Okay, good. So I have everything in place, and now I will start with my analysis process. And what I always like to do is to look at the data from different angles. So for example, whenever I see a date field in my data, I know I can do an analysis on the change over time. Whenever I see categorical fields like boroughs or Palm areas, I know I can look, for example, into magnitude of certain measures. Whenever I see a geometry, I can look into spatial relationships and try to find interesting insights on that angle. Yeah, and yeah, this is what I want to do together with you, or this is what I want to do now. So first thing, I will create a line chart. For a line chart, I would do something like this. I would use the year field from my extract here as a continuous measure, and then maybe start with the average household. And I see, what is this? 8.8 million average household income doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't make sense? Because Tableau summed up my measure. So maybe I should change the default aggregation. And since this is already an average, I should most likely take the median here. Also change it here. And yeah, I see the medium average household income in New York City from 2018 to 2023. Next thing I might want to do is to break that down to boroughs, and yeah, maybe this is what you would expect. Bronx at the bottom, Manhattan at the top, and I think you can see for all boroughs this kind of dip in 2021, and I think this is where maybe COVID kicked in. So already a first insight we see in the data. When looking at this, we also have the PAM area. So maybe I will do something like use borough as a filter and maybe only look into Manhattan. And instead of breaking it down by borough, I want to break it down by PAM area. Yeah, can also add that maybe to a label. Where is it here? And you get a first, or you get different insights again. Yeah, so this is District 1 and 2 at the top of Manhattan, and District 11 at the bottom of Manhattan. Yeah, maybe this is already good. We can change the filter a little bit to easily toggle between the boroughs. And again, I'm not from New York, so these district names don't tell me anything. But if you're from the area, there's might be already insights for you. Okay, so this is household income change over time. Then what I like to do is just to duplicate this. And instead of looking at the change over time, you might want to look at the distribution. So I will put the boroughs here. I will take out the years and maybe drag it completely out and put the median here, and then change to a circle. And this tells me something about the distribution of my boroughs over all years. And this may be already at least interesting for me. And what I see here is that, for example, Manhattan is kind of, shows at least a strange distribution. So we have some districts with a very high average household income, and some districts with a kind of low income, and a very big gap in the middle. And in other boroughs like Queens, for example, also Bronx and Brooklyn are more compact than Manhattan. Yeah, I think the label could go here, and instead maybe I add a reference line to also show the median here for each of the boroughs, and this shows us, that surprisingly Staten Island has the highest median average household income. Also, there are only 3 boroughs, but others 3 PAM areas, sorry, and others have other distributions.
Just real quick, Klaus. This is something we all should do when we start taking a look at data. We should always look at data inquisitively. And what Klaus has done in Manhattan, he looks and he says, well, I don't know Manhattan, but something looks different about this data. Now, Maddie shared with us in a preview that this data makes sense because of the distribution of income in Manhattan. So it does make sense, but it's the sort of thing that, as an analyst, when you see something that doesn't make sense, we should go back and question ourselves: is it correct, or do we have a problem with the data?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, then maybe a third one is about magnitude. So maybe at this point I want to see the actual I cannot type and talk at the same time. Magnitude, so like this, make this a bar chart. Maybe take back the years here, toggle to a bar chart, and drag out the PAM areas here. Get rid of the reference line, sort in descending order. maybe only fit the width, and add labels to this, and this gives me a sense of which are the biggest districts, or where's the income the highest, and where do we have low income in different districts. Maybe the filter would be nice here again, so we can maybe apply this filter also to my magnitude, this one, and we can filter the boroughs with the same filter. Then the last one will be my map. So let's look at household income from a spatial point of view. Now I have to take care that I only keep the correct ones here. So let's filter them first. And New York City. Now let's select them all. Then bring in the geometry. So these are my different POM areas. I will add the name here, so this way I can access each of the POM areas independently, and then drag my median to color. I think something broke on the last step. I cannot correctly connect the. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure where this went wrong, but this is not working yet. Let's take a last look at this. Maddie, anything you see? What could be the problem here? Or maybe it's Puma and not name. That would make sense, maybe.
Are you on the shapefile?
Yeah.
It could be because I did not, I don't know how to edit the shapefile, and there are a couple of those districts that are aggregated.
Okay, good. Yeah, don't worry. I think I have a working version somewhere. So this is what the household income Puma, the spatial one would look like. So again, this here is Manhattan with these rich areas, and also here in Brooklyn. And you see lighter colors in other areas, which gives us a sense of where there is much household income and where there is little income. Okay, good. Yeah, that's basically it. And what I would now do is to do this with all the measures in my data, and this way I would get insights on different things step by step. For example, for the public assistance dollars, population on public assistance dollars, and maybe would create a calculation here to calculate the share of people who need assistance, and then just repeat what I do, change over time, distribution, magnitude, spatial. And this way you will end up with lots of charts quite fast. And this is maybe the place where I hand it over to Jim to introduce a little technique to work with a parameter to select between different measures.
Okay, well, thanks, Klaus. Let me see. I think you have to stop sharing your screen before I can share mine. There we go. There we go. Okay, give me a second here, and as Klaus said, this is great because now you can look at the data and you get a sense of what's going on with the data. It also generates a lot of charts, and if you're working with a group or you want to send this on to management, they don't necessarily want to see a lot of charts. They'd like to see something that they could interact with and work with it. And what I'd like to do here, and what we're going to show you how to do, is how we can take this measure and make each set of charts using a parameter to select the measure itself. I'm going to come over here. onto this chart. This is his distribution chart. We do the same thing on each one of these, really. But I'm going to start by showing by creating a parameter. And let's look at what that parameter looks like. This is nothing more than a string parameter. And all I've done is put some values in here for household income, public assistance, and population. Those are the three charts that he wanted to look at. And now I've got to create a dynamic measure. And we can use this dynamic measure to replace the individual measures that he had on the 12 charts that he created. So let's all we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that case statement, or we're going to create a case statement, and we're going to take a look at the parameter. And when it's HHI for household income, we want to take the average of the measure household income. That's what Klaus was plotting on his chart. When it's public assistance, we want to take a look at the average of the average public assistance dollars. And population, we want to take a look at the average number of people, or the average population. Those are the measures that Klaus had in the data. And if we were to take a look at that, we could see those measures sitting over here. He said confidently. There they are. There they are. They're right here. Okay. So now, when we change, and I'm going to go back to this dashboard. On this dashboard, what I've done is I've added, well, I created three charts, and I should mention that. I've created three charts. One of those charts is for the distribution. I created a second chart using the same process to show the distribution. Those are the dot chart that Klaus created. And I've created a third chart that shows the breakdown by Puma area. And I placed them on a dashboard. And we can take a look now. And right now we're looking at household income on those three charts in each one of those areas. And by changing the parameter that we created, we can now look at public assistance as opposed to household income. Or we can take a look at population. And in here, we can still take a look by borough. And we can take a look. I'm going to put Manhattan in here. And you see I've got Manhattan. And we can take a look at Queens. And we can take a look at Staten Island separately. And we did that by adding an action filter. Right here, we created an action filter and passed that action onto each one of the charts that we created. So now we've got this dynamic chart where we can look at each of the boroughs, and we can take a look at each of the measures individually. But you know what? It's pretty ugly. And I know a lot of you know me. I'm an engineer, and I don't have too much artistic talent, but we know somebody who do. Swati, are you ready to take over at this point?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I have stopped sharing. You should be able to pick it up.
Let's do that. You have seen like how Jim has passed on the dashboard to me, and are you able to see the exact dashboard at the moment?
We can see your dashboard.
Yeah. So right now, the idea here is we have to we have to present it to a business user or whoever it is. Like, we cannot take this kind of dashboard to them, or even we as a user cannot actually find out what is happening here. There's so much of information that's going on. So one thing that is important for all of us to understand here is how do we lay out the dashboard, given that we have these many metrics or these many views in the dashboard. How do we lay out that? Like, something that I use is my rough work. So if you can see, like I do have my layout presented, like how I want my dashboard to be presented to the audience or anybody as such. So what we would do is like we just take few steps that we follow just so we can convert this kind of dashboard into what you see as this one and make it presentable to the users. So one thing is you can go into the dashboard, click on the format, and make sure that you are actually using the formatting of the whole dashboard all at once, so it is easy. So following along, I'll be giving you some of the tips that would be very easy and useful. And here you can just change the font of the dashboard and it automatically changes the dashboard title. If at all you wanted to do it at the worksheet, all of the worksheets can be changed at once. Say, for example, you wanted to change from a regular to, say, medium. You can just change that all at once and increase the font size or decrease depending on how you wanted to see that. Who is this? So this is the default setting. Like usually how the templates are being made are based on this format of the dashboard. I don't know why this is not working at the moment. But usually if you actually change the worksheet titles here, it actually changes all the worksheet titles on the dashboard that are present. I'm not sure if this is...
Maybe you have to reset the titles first because you have different formats.
Is it because of the two different formats that I'm using?
I think so, yeah.
Right. Okay, that's a good point to know. So in that instance, like Klaus has mentioned, like probably you just have to manually edit those things. And here, one thing is because if you have seen the passed on, I don't know if this one. Are you able to see my switching of the dashboards into another one? Are you able to see all the PUM areas from
Yes, we
2023? Okay, good. So this is so much of an information, right? If you see, these are all the PUM areas, and do we want the user to actually take all of this at once? No, right? So we just have to reduce it a little and then make the user actually feel it syncing in the data that we are providing. So what I've done is instead of taking the PUM areas, I've just took the boroughs, and this is how the data is spread across from 2018 to 2023. And I've made use of the filter ability, like you can click on one of the borough and then it filters to that particular thing. So, and how did we do that? Like by using the dashboard actions, obviously. And I've added the select. So from this particular from this particular view, you can just make sure that you click on select for that particular borough and not a year. You are selecting a borough there and all of your dashboards change. And after clearing the selection, you just have all the values. By clearing the selection, I mean, if I just click out of the... So this is how I clicked, and this is how the clear of selection is. So by clearing the selection, I'll show all the values. And another thing is that once we have the layout presented, we then something that we have to make sure is how your titles are and what is the typography that you're following throughout the dashboard. That was basically like how you actually put the template, or if you are to follow different fonts, then you have to just go and check what you are giving it on the dashboard itself for each of the title. So we have to follow a clean structure so that it is easy for the user as well. So here, if you see, the median is actually presented on the title header, just so we don't have this lot of space that goes into the dashboard there. So we just provide it there. And another thing is that the tooltips, which are really important. So if you, okay, here's something that we can do is on the top of the dashboard, you can just round your numbers, but on the tooltips, you can exactly provide what the information is. So another tip here is if you press on Alt W and O, you'll have the tooltip of this particular dashboard, and you can change this. Okay, so this is a
Swati, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing you change the data in the tooltip.
oh,
Okay.
let me
Unshare. Okay, now share your screen going to your the whole screen. Go to share again. Share the entire screen.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. Now, and then pick what you want to share, and you'll be able to see that.
Any luck now?
Yeah. Now try it again. There you go.
Perfect.
There you go.
Okay.
We know a lot about Tableau. We're not so big on Bevy, but that's okay.
Yeah. So if you click on a particular view, you can press on Alt WO, and then it will automatically bring you that edit tooltip option. But the best thing is that you just round up the figures on the dashboard, and then on the tooltip, instead of having 5K, you can give the exact number. So for that thing, what you can do is you can just go into this one, because that is a dynamic measure. I can just format this here, and I can say on the pane, I can just give the numbers. So instead of thousands, I can just make it to non-display, and this is going to be on the tooltip. I need that. Am I missing something here? So there you go. So here on the scale, I just changed the format so that you know exactly what the number is, not 5K, rounding it up, and just have the exact number if they wanted to see. But if you have to put the full 5003, it is going to obviously occupy the space. We don't want that to happen. We want a little clean dashboard to present when we are presenting it to the users, or if we wanted to see as well. And another very important thing that I like is having what this dashboard is actually trying to deliver. What is the purpose of this dashboard, and what are the important questions that this dashboard can answer? For this, what I usually is I just take a screenshot or an image of this and let the ChatGPT do the work for me. So what I do is I just take the screenshot and then upload it to the ChatGPT and ask what are the 3 important business questions that this dashboard can answer, and it gives me anything that I want. I mean, really well-structured things. Or you can just make more, you can just prompt it with more information, and it gives you more questions as well. And you can just pick what are the important ones. So that is something that I really like to do. And for the users as well, this is another important thing, like when the data has been last updated on. So if you are obviously, if the workflow did not run, then you can still see that, or the user is still prompted with what's the last updated date on. So these are some of the elements that are really important for in the user perspective, or even for yourself if you wanted to come back and look into the details of where things are going on. And also, if you wanted to have more information, you can just have a caption or a simple icon of the version history and what are the changes that have been made going on the versions. So that would be really important when we are actually delivering a dashboard to the user or anybody as such. I think that is it. And
Okay, let's just just hang in there for 1 second. I got a couple of observations. First of all, very well done. We're getting comments here. Everybody loves the idea that that light bulb up in the corner. That's really a great tip, and it's a great way to include things. This one's a question more for Maddie. I'm surprised nobody has noticed this before or put anything in the chat about it. Has anybody noticed that there's always been a straight line between 2019 and 2021? There doesn't seem to be any change in 2020. Maddie, do you want to explain to everybody why there's no change in 2020?
Yes, there's actually not data for that year. So the years that we collected data was 2018, 2019, 2021, 22, and 23. And that's because in 2020, there were issues collecting data because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is not surprising to people. But the ACS is a survey. So the survey was not representative enough, and they did not get enough returned surveys across an appropriate distribution for that data to be accurate. So.
Okay, another issue that you have with public data. You almost have what you want. The one piece you're missing, you can't really wrap your arms around. Yes, I've had days like that also. I don't know who's got an open mic. Okay. That one piece of data that you're looking for, you might have to go to another source to find. Okay.
Yeah, maybe Jim.
Go
One thing from my side, I found the issue with my shapefile. If anyone is interested in why this went wrong, let me quickly share my screen again. And I was quite confused because this was working when I set this up, but I somehow forgot that the PUM areas in my hyperfile look different from the PUM areas in the shapefile. Yeah, so we have this suffix here with, I guess, counties or districts belonging to that PUM area. So I need to cut this part off here to make the shapefile work. And you could do that quite easily here in the relationship. So instead of taking the Puma itself, I will split off the Puma on the delimiter, which was, I think, something like this. And I will take the first part and use that on the right side of the relationship. And when I update now, this should work. And when I'm here, I can try one more time creating that map.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Here we go. And let's also try to do this. It still doesn't work. I don't know why. Okay. So I'm still doing something wrong, but the solution is close, I think.
Yep. But you're raising another point that we have to deal with whenever we're working with public data. Just because the name on the field is the same doesn't actually mean that the data in the field is the same. And you might have to go back and you might have to clean that to get things to match up. Public data is a joy, isn't it, Maddie?
I'm so happy about it.
Yeah. You want to take us back to the end of the presentation, and we'll finish this up.
Yes, I do. Give me 1 second. Sorry, my computer decided this is the time for it to.
Okay. We wanted to try something new with the presentation today. We wanted to take in this case, a public data set and go from scratch and show you all the things you had to do to get all the things we had to do to get it to a point that it was ready to publish. We'd love some feedback on that. If you enjoyed it and you let us know. We want to hear more of that because we're planning on doing it twice more this year with different types of data sets. Maddie, I need one previous slide to this, please. Okay. I want to remind you that our next meeting is December the 6th. I plan on being there. I hope you're going to be there too. And Jennifer Dawes is going to be there with us. And like I said, she's a brand new visionary, but Jennifer is very well known in the world of Tableau Public and on the social media site. She's very good at what she does. I want to see some of you at TC. Klaus and I are going to be at convention this year, and we'd love to meet you. If you see us walking down the hall, or if you're in the data village and you see us standing there, come on up and say hi. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to hear your story and how you're progressing on your journey. So looking forward to seeing you there. Klaus, anybody have anything else they want to say to this group?
Yep, looking forward to seeing you at conference, and enjoy spring, maybe.
Okay, very good. We'll see you all on May the 6th, and if all the leaders would just hang on, we can wrap this up. Thank you very much.